Come around and be sworn, please. Raise your hand. Be sworn. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Take a seat. Judge Allred, you may ask.
I have submitted some records for subpoenaed those tickets. Mr. Chairman, I haven't seen those yet.
Provide those to the judge.
There was some confusion about one of our missing parties here, so I explained to him, I think that that's okay. Okay. Would you state your full name for the record, please?
Paul Eugene Weaver.
And where do you live, sir?
For my home address, Fort Wright, Kentucky.
I'm sorry, I should have asked your business address since you're doing this as business.
11 East 10th Street, Covington, Kentucky.
And do you have an occasion to, before I start, who do you work for?
Self-employed.
Are you employed by the Administrative Office of the Courts?
That's a good question. I believe I'm employed by the Judicial Conduct Commission, but my pay is through the Administrative Office of the Courts.
Do they maintain a personnel file on you at the AOC?
They do.
Were you hired by the director of the AOC?
By the director of the AOC? I've never spoken with the director of the AOC.
Okay.
Well, at any time. There's been more than one director, but I've never spoken with any director.
Okay. In regard to the investigation of me, you were dispatched to check on some issues involving me. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What was the date that you first were assigned to my case?
I do not know the specific date. It would have been the latter part of May 2010.
And who was the first person that you came into contact with on your investigation in regard to me?
Well, the first person I would have come in contact with would have been Jim Lawson, the executive director of the Judicial Conduct Commission. And as a result of those conversations, then I would have, the first person that I met pertaining to any information concerning the investigation in Harlan, Kentucky would have been Henry Johnson.
Did you contact him by telephone before you came to see him?
I believe so, yes, sir.
And was he in Harlan when you talked to him on the telephone, or was he somewhere else at that time?
I believe he was in Harlan. I think I called the Commonwealth Attorney's Office in Harlan, Kentucky.
Did you talk to him that day or leave a message?
You know, it's a year and a half ago or close to it. I can't recall. I know that there was a meeting date set or scheduled and established. I don't know if it was the day I called, the next day, but there was a meeting scheduled with Mr. Johnson.
Would that have been the day that you took his statement?
Yes, I believe May 24th or 5th of 2010.
Did you call him the day before you came down and took his statement, or was it like the week before? Do you recall?
Probably within a few days. I doubt if it would have been the day before, probably within 3-4 days to a week.
So it would have been from probably the 22nd, around 22nd of May?
That's purely a guess, sir. I can't give you a specific date.
How many statements did you take of Henry Johnson?
I took one statement of Henry Johnson, as I recall, and it was tape recorded and transcribed.
Did you have an occasion to see Joe Grisham?
I did, yes, sir.
And how many times did you see Joe Grisham in this investigation?
I spoke with Judge Grisham half a dozen times, maybe saw him sometimes, spoke to him on the street, saw him in his office the day I interviewed him, 2 or 3 subsequent times to that. I'm guessing 5 to 6, 7 times.
How many times did you actually make a trip from Covington to go and interview witnesses or gather evidence in regard to me?
Oh, I have no idea, sir.
Well over 30?
I don't know. Not over 30 times, because that would have been, I can't answer that question. I don't know. The statements and so forth would speak for themselves.
Okay. And do you recall going into on those trips, did George Robbie, counsel for JCC, accompany you on some of those trips?
A couple of the trips, yes, sir.
Okay. Did he accompany you into Joe Grisham's office to interview him on an occasion?
We went to Joe Grisham to speak with him. It was not a purpose of an interview. I recall that Mr. Robbie wanted to speak with Judge Grisham to clarify some things within his statement, and he asked that we stop by there, and we did.
Who asked if you could stop by there?
Mr. Robbie.
Mr. Robbie did. Did you go and see him? Was this on November the 10th of 2010?
I can't say.
Was it in November?
Could have been, yes.
It was one of your last trips to talk to you.
It was. It was towards the conclusion of this investigation, yes, sir.
Now, I understand you have some training as a police officer. Is that correct?
I do, yes, sir.
You're a retired police officer?
I am.
Okay. And were you academy trained officer?
I was.
Okay. Are you a licensed private investigator?
I am.
Were you also the mayor of Fort Wright?
I was.
Okay. The city council member for the city of Fort Wright?
Yes, sir.
Do you ever recall making the statement to Joe Grisham as follows? I'm sure the sheriff, if he could, he would apologize. He would do that. Do you remember telling Joe Grisham that?
I don't know if those are the exact words, but it needs to be put in the proper context.
Well, if you would, please, did you say that?
I can't say I said specifically that. I do recall making some comment in reference to various statements and comments made by Mr. Grisham that the sheriff or any law enforcement agency, they don't pick and choose the cases that come to them. They have a responsibility to investigate cases that are presented, and I was not trying to speak on behalf of Sheriff Lipford or anyone else in Harlan County, but I made some comment to the effect that, he may be sorry that, this investigation was initiated or something to that effect.
Well, you were being paid to be down in Harlan talking to Joe Grisham, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it wasn't just a social visit you went in there with Joe Grisham, was it?
No, as I said previously, Mr. Robbie wanted to speak with Joe Grisham concerning some matters that had been made in his statement, and we were together. Okay. Mr. Grisham was very talkative, very agitated, and very animated in his conversation with us that day.
So you made some kind of a statement. You admit that you made some kind of statement to Judge Executive Joe Grisham. The sheriff would be sorry or apologize or something like that?
I said he may apologize or he may be sorry, and those were my words. Those were not the words of anyone else. As I said, you have to put it in the proper context of what was being said in response to things that Judge Grisham was saying.
Well, aren't you an investigator, Mr. Weaver?
Yes, sir, we've established that.
Are you an advocate?
No, sir, I'm not an advocate.
Did you report the things that Joe Grisham had said to the commission?
I did not report that because it made no bearing and there was no change in anything that Joe Grisham said that day. It was more personal attacks on Mr. Johnson and Sheriff Lipford than the content of any statement that he had previously made.
Didn't he recant what he had said about me in the first statement he gave to you?
I do not recall any recant of anything other than the fact that Mr. Grisham, as I previously said, was agitated, animated. He was getting very personal in his attacks and on Mr. Johnson and Sheriff Lipford, just going on and on about things of their personal preferences, their religious beliefs. It was probably one of the most bizarre conversations I've ever had with an individual of his stature. And I've been, for nearly 40 years, involved with elected officials in some form or capacity, and that may have been one of the most bizarre conversations I've ever had.
So you saw him at least a half a dozen times. Did you submit half a dozen reports to the commission?
Yeah, sometimes I'd see him on the street. He'd say, "Hi, how you doing?" We'd chit-chat for a second. We would go our separate ways.
No, I asked you, did you actually, how many times did you actually go into his office and sit down and talk to him, or actually ask him questions about something that was going on?
Maybe 3.
Did you submit 3 statements?
No, sir, I did not, because a lot of it was just, I think one time I stopped and picked up an audio tape of a fiscal court hearing. There was conversation, but there were no interviews taken, no statements taken, and no new or additional information provided.
On the time you said that he was agitated, and you told him the sheriff would apologize, or I'm sure he was sorry, or something like that.
Correct.
Did you try to investigate why he was upset at these 2 gentlemen? Did he tell you, let me rephrase that, did he tell you that the sheriff had been out telling his political opponents about the investigation? Did he tell you that?
No, sir, I have no memory of that. He told me that he felt, as I recall, that he felt that the sheriff and the Commonwealth attorney were trying to either set him up or embarrass him politically, something to that effect.
Did you think it was important to investigate his allegations?
Well, I was not there to investigate the allegations of the Commonwealth attorney or the sheriff. That is far beyond the purview of either myself or, I believe, the Judicial Conduct Commission.
But you did investigate the allegations of the Commonwealth attorney, didn't you? You made allegations against me, and you investigated those, didn't you?
Because you were an RA setting judge.
And the judge executive, the reason you were talking to him with George Robbins' counsel was because you were there doing the job that you were paid to do to investigate. So obviously there's a reason to be there concerning me, correct?
Well, the vast majority of the conversation that day, Mr. Robbie had a few questions he wanted clarified from Judge Grisham. Judge Grisham, as I started to say and have said, he launched into a lot of attacks, a lot of accusations, personal type things about people's sexual preferences, their religious beliefs. It was very, very personal. It was things that would have nothing to do with me personally or the Judicial Conduct Commission. It was about beliefs of people being atheists and people's sexual desires and preferences. And I must, as I've said previously, it was one of the most unusual conversations I've ever had with an elected official of that stature.
But you didn't report any of this to the commission?
No, sir. Well, I do believe I may have discussed it just in brief conversation with Jim Lawson, the executive secretary.
So you did make a report to Mr. Lawson?
Just we talked to Joe Grisham, and there was no written or formal report made because anything that was within his statement really never changed. He never recanted information. It was personal attacks on two individuals. He talked how he was going to destroy them politically, that he was going to go after both of the gentlemen or individuals and attack them and attempt to unseat them during their next election. It all evolved around that type of conversation.
But didn't he tell you that they were opportunists, that they used the grand jury to try to destroy him, that the sheriff had set him up? Didn't they tell you? Did he tell you that?
I don't recall that, sir. No, sir.
So he was just in a fury. He didn't tell you why he was mad. That's your testimony.
Well, he felt that, I don't know if the word opportunist was ever used, but he was angry that I guess there was a rehash of the grand jury order and so forth.